the question then is, okay, what can DBS do if we want to build a new business model, right? Some of you might be in consumer banking, retail banking, and so on. You're starting to say, well, okay, strategy, it's a bit high, high level for me. I don't really think there's any more strategizing we need to do. Well, my suggestion is there are a lot of areas where you can bring innovative thinking to what you're doing on a daily basis, okay? It does not need to be something that is so serendipitous that means you need a rocket scientist to give you this insight. What it simply means is to really take a look at your business operation and start trawling for insight, okay? And the important thing to do is to do it from outside the box. If you're doing from where you are now, not so likely. What you have to do is to take a fresh look, possibly working with a consultant, but really taking an objective, fresh look at what your business is all about and getting some insight. Now, what I'm going to give you as a case study is that of a very famous milkshake company, which I shall name, in California. Now, imagine you sell milkshakes. Your store sells milkshake. What is the typical process you would go about to increase the sale of milkshakes? Now, the traditional way of doing this thing, what we tend to call needs-based, is you start going back to a client and says, okay, would you like more flavors? Typically, what would clients say? Sure, why not? Would you like a cheaper milkshake? So typically, what would customers say? Sure, why not? Yeah. And after you conduct this very thorough analysis, you go back to your client and says, I've already done it. We're going to do exactly the same, but we're going to do more flavors, less margins. But that's strategy, okay? Now, this is traditionally what you call a needs-based approach, and that's what we tend to do. In the banking things, you can say, okay, maybe I can just offer a few basis points higher interest or provide a few more services. That's the conventional needs-based approach. What happens is, we're going to start looking at something called jobs-based approach. Think of yourself selling nails. If you're selling nails, you go, would you like to buy more nails? You guys will say, yeah, cheaper, yes. Non-rusting nails, you'll say yes. But now, jobs-based approach means you focus on the nails and think of it as holes that you hire out to people. They want nails to punch holes into the wall. That is what we call job space. So, in terms of this incumbent that was looking at milkshakes, what they did was they truly studied what goes into the process of people consuming milkshakes. And that really means having a very objective look when milkshakes are bought, how they're consumed, when they're consumed, where they're consumed, everything other than the milkshake itself. More flavors, sweeter, cheaper. So it is truly getting a holistic, big picture view because you're trawling for insight. So bottom line is, for this particular case, I'll just give you the solutions, the 10-year series answer. The consultants went and did a very, very thorough analysis of this milkshake company, and they realized the main consumers of milkshakes was actually the father. And the father actually uses milkshakes twice a day. The first time when he's rushing to work, no time for breakfast in the US, they buy a milkshake to gobble down because it's somewhat healthy. Now they come back later in the afternoon and they take their kids out for fast food, usually as a reward for the kids. So that's the second time they have milkshake. Now when you have this great insight therefore, what the company did was they retailed and they came up with two versions of milkshake. A thicker, fruitier, more healthy version in the morning. That's for the fathers. And in the afternoons themselves, for the kids, a slightly sweeter, less filling version, because that's what the kids want. Okay? So that's the kind of insight that goes hand in hand with strategy. It requires work to get to that crux of what the job of the milkshake is. Not the needs of the people that says, I want cheaper milkshake, but really what does the job, what's served buy the milkshakes themselves. So I'll give you another quick, simple example. This one is taken from Joachim Staller. It's about incumbents Procter & Gamble. They have the #1 incumbent potato chip in the world called Frito-Lay. But once you have a $6 billion enterprise, how do you create massive growth? Now they went through the same kinds of iterations. Do we just cut prices? Do we put more flavors? But they went to a jobs-based way of developing a strategy, and they abandoned the conventional thinking. Conventional thinking is to sell more milkshake, to sell more potato chips. I have to position my potato chips in the best place at the front of the checkout counter. After conducting what you call a jobs-based analysis, all of that was debunked. It doesn't move potato chips. The whole concept of impulse buying, not really true. What they did was based again on studying everything about the purchase of the potato chips. They looked into very, very detailed buying logs from the customers to develop that insight. That is, Frito-Lay was bought for what they call a smile break. People like Frito-Lay for occasions which is very, very light. What they called the Lay moment was defined in terms of a happy and positive, but not over-the-top birthday celebration type thing. It's just when you want to break. And that's where they had this very, very great insight. People love Frito-Lay just to break the ordinary and have a little smile break. So based on this insight, they launched the Get Your Smile On campaign. This was, by the way, in 2006. Stores in the 7-Elevens and so on increased by 10%, 15% growth in grocery stores. Brand equity increased across all segments purely from this insight, and that's where the strategy came across. So before I go on to the rest of this talk about strategy, the takeaway here is you can never overstudy your customers, okay? And beyond the traditional needs-based questions, there is a tremendous amount that you can mine from your customers about all the other related points about their interactions with you. When, where, how they interact with you. And that's where you can get this insight, right? So, key of jobs-based analysis is stop asking what do you need, because they'll always tell you things that they are familiar with, prices and so on. But get back to what job is served by your products and your services. And that's where you start to develop your strategy around it. Now let's give you another simple case study, Walmart. Most of us know Walmart is one of the top 5 companies in the world. It's no longer #1, but it's still pretty damn big. Now the interesting thing about Walmart is that Walmart did not start this whole category of retail, mass retail. There were companies like even Kmart that came before Walmart. And Kmart themselves took the idea from supermarkets that have been around for easily 70, 80 years. Supermarkets came by giving wide aisles, letting people buy everything that they want. Kmart came along and says, instead of just milk and eggs and meat, why don't I do clothing, crockery, etc.? Kmart came along. Now, this was all around the 50s. Walmart launched in 1962. Why is Walmart #1? More directly, what was the strategy used by Walmart in '62 that allowed them to be #1? Anybody? We shall now have a moment of awkward silence. What did Walmart do in 1962 when they launched? That was their little simple insight. And I'll answer some questions for you. It wasn't the inventory system. That happened only closer to the 1990s and the year 2000, where computer strength was fast enough to let them find out every time a tube of toothpaste was bought. That was much later. What was the insight? Imagine you're now competing with Kmart in the US. All right? These guys came out, they've all started their big stores and doing a lot of business. What can you do now to outflank Kmart?
They make shopping an experience.
Pardon me?
They make shopping an experience.
So did Kmart. I mean, it was a novel experience. Wow, instead of a small store like that sold you your car filters and everything, multiply that by 20 times, and that is an experience. Kmart started that.
But move your Walmart stores outside of your city. Walmart stores are moved outside of the city.
That's a good point. It is located generally outside where the land is cheap, and that happens in the US where the land is cheap. But that wasn't the real differentiating point. It's a good point about location. All right? Imagine again, you're Kmart, you are a strong incumbent, you see this huge market, and you are really reaping this benefit. What does Walmart do to outflank you? What strategy did they use? It has to do with location, but not in the sense that you said it's out of the city. Everyone did that. I'll get to the point. Where they realized the point with Walmart was Kmart and the rest all fought for the big cities. The Californias, the Los Angeles, the New York,